The Enterprise crew arrives at the outpost on Cestus 3 and finds it's been obliterated. They find the culprits and chase them into territory belonging to yet another race of supreme beings who decide to settle the matter by having the two opposing captains transported to a planet to battle it out to the death. Only the other guy is a 7-foot muscly lizard man. Kirk's gonna need all his wits and a little bit of chemistry knowledge to survive the arena. Hit it!
Hey!
For once, the Enterprise ain't delivering any packages this week, but we pick up in the transporter room where Kirk and a team of tactical eggheads are about to beam down to the Earth outpost on Cestus 3 to meet with Commodore Travers. According to Kirk and McCoy's weirdly giddy conversation, Travers likes to serve really good food, so the two of them are real excited about that. Spock seems suspicious about the Commodore wanting the eggheads to come too, and we learn that Cestus 3 is isolated on the edge of nowhere, close to unknown space. Kirk thinks maybe Travers needs some advice on how to defend the outpost. McCoy's like, who cares? Food! But when the team beams down, there ain't no food, there ain't no Travers, heck, there ain't no colony. The place has been blown to hell. It looks like Newark with a hangover. Kirk calls up the Enterprise and lets them know the outpost has been destroyed. The team takes cover and starts trying to piece together what happened. Spock mentions the message directing the Enterprise to come to Cestus 3 was just yesterday, and the colony looks like it's been like this for days. Kirk tells the team to fan out, and Spock finds some life signs that turn out to be a guy with some radiation burns who's been beat up really good. While McCoy works on patching him up, Spock picks up some more life signs, but he says they ain't human. They ain't even warm-blooded. He gets a lock on their location, and Kirk sends O'Herlihy off to check it out. Well, the Irish canary gets all of 10 feet before getting zotted out of existence. Either that was a really weird artillery piece or they phasered him and also shot artillery at the Enterprise team. Either way, suddenly, bombardment begins. Kirk and Spock take cover by running over to the exact spot that O'Herlihy got whacked at. I guess that's what happens when your tactical guy gets greased, right? Well, Kirk calls up the ship to beam the landing party up, but Sulu reports an unidentified ship has shown up and started an attack on the Enterprise. Since the shields are up, he can't beam Kirk and party up. Kirk says, that's cool, fire the phasers. Sulu is like, thanks, Lord Nelson. I was smart enough to put the shields up. I don't think I need you to tell me that I need to shoot the guys that are shooting at us, too. But I appreciate the input. Kirk says, okay, fine. Just keep fighting the bad guys and pick us up when you're done, all right? Well, the bombardment continues, so the team grab their wounded guy and make a break for a nearby structure. Kirk asks Spock where the outpost arsenal is. Spock points him in the right direction, and as he's running over to it, he checks in with Sulu, who says, What? What do you want? I'm shooting them, but their shields are holding. Kirk tells him to use the photon torpedoes, and if he needs to, that Sulu should warp out of orbit, whatever it takes to protect the Enterprise. Sulu says, okay, I'll do that. Bye. Spock notices the bad guys are starting to move, so he moves up to tell Kirk. Kirk ducks in the arsenal and returns with a mortar that shoots pool balls and a box of twos. He lets one fly and it blows up real good. So good, in fact, the bad guys take off. Their ship beams them up and they start to haul ass, and Sulu stops hauling his own ass and turns around to pick up the team, and the chase is on. The bad guys are trying to retreat into an unexplored area of the galaxy. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy talk to the wounded guy who's now in sickbay. He says the ship showed up and requested to use their facilities. They agreed and it came in using normal approach procedures, nothing hinky. But then they opened fire and took out the outpost phases right away. Then they started pummeling the place to smithereens. He tried to tell him that they had women and children down here, but it didn't matter. Kirk asks about the 2 messages they received. The guy says those did not come from the outpost. Kirk figures they were a trap designed to lure the Enterprise there and put their tactical people in a vulnerable position. He concludes that the purpose must have been to take out the Enterprise, the only protection in that area of the galaxy, so that the area would be more wide open for invasion. Spock says there ain't enough proof that that's what's going on here. Kirk says he has all the proof he needs. Spock disagrees, but Kirk ain't having it. Spock relents and says, well, if that's the case, then we gotta destroy the ship before it gets to its home territory. Kirk tells Sulu to increase speed to overtake the bad guys and get ready for a fight. Bad guys are going warp 6, increasing speed to match the Enterprise, so Kirk orders warp 7. Everybody seems a little worried about this. Spock makes another plea for an alternate strategy that don't involve the destruction of the bad guys. Once again, Kirk don't want to hear it. Bad guys go to warp 7, so Kirk orders warp 8. Everybody gets even more nervous, and somebody looks around for a copy of Moby Dick. As they're getting close to the bad guys, Lieutenant DePaul picks up a solar system nearby, and the Enterprise gets scanned by somebody over there. Suddenly, the bad guy's ship starts slowing down and eventually stops. Kirk orders the Enterprise to close in for the kill. As they do so, though, something stops the Enterprise dead in its tracks too, and they find themselves staring across at the bad guy's ship, neither one of them able to do squat. Scotty says the engines are dead, but the life support is fine. Phasers report they're all down too. Nothing seems to be broken, stuff just don't work. Spock discovers that they're being held by something coming from that nearby solar system. Kirk says that's impossible. Spock is like, oh, okay, I'll tell him. Suddenly, the lights on the Enterprise dim, and the final sequence from 2001 shows up on the view screen. A voice comes on and says that they are the Metrons. They don't like that these two ships have come into their yard bringing all this ruckus. They scan the ships, though, and it looks like you guys are just violent people, so I'll tell you what. Since you like fighting so much, here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna let the two captains fight it out on the nearby planet of Vasquez Rocks. You'll both have a translator and recorder in case you want to do some blogging or something, and as a bonus, we'll put some stuff down there that you can use to make weapons. Whoever wins gets to live. Whoever loses, their ship gets blown up, okay? Oh, and by the way, the other guys are called the Gorn. And with that, Kirk disappears from the bridge. Down on the planet, we finally get a look at the alien captain. He's a 7-foot friggin' lizard guy with knobby knees, but otherwise seems pretty stout physically. Kirk has an inner monologue and mentions that, like all humans, he has an instinctual revulsion when it comes to reptiles. So he's got to try to remember that this guy is a starship captain like he is, and is probably intelligent and crafty and whatnot. The Gorn is big, but slow. Like, comically slow. Kirk can't seem to make any headway fighting him hand to hand, though. He breaks free of a bear hug and gets up high enough to throw a big rock at the Gorn. The Gorn responds by throwing a friggin' boulder back at Kirk. Kirk runs off. On the ship, Spock and Scotty try to get the ship back up and running, but no dice. Kirk pulls out his recorder thing and starts a log entry. Go with what you know, right? As he's recording, though, we see that the Gorn can hear him. The Gorn don't let on, though. He just monitors what Kirk is saying. He's a monitor lizard. Anyway, Kirk finds some friggin' huge diamonds on the surface, but says he'd trade them all for a phaser or a Louisville Slugger, preferably Mickey Mantle model. He mentions the Metron said there would be weapons, but he don't know what they meant, and he don't see nothing around. But he better figure it out pretty quick. Cut to our iguana friend, and he's found what looks like obsidian or something, and is chipping it down to a nice stabby shape. Kirk spots him from way up above, and considering he got an A in Roadrunner Coyote Combat at the Academy, spots a precariously balanced boulder right in the perfect spot above Wile E. Komodo Dragon down there, and he lets it fly. And he nails him. Boom! From way to hell downtown. But Gordon Gekko ain't going out like that and starts to get up, ready to test out his stabby rock. Kirk runs off and right into a trap set by our green scaly friend back there. There's a rock on Kirk's legs and he's got vines all tangling him up. Not bad for somebody what sleeps under a heat lamp, right? As he closes in for the kill, though, Kirk manages to squirm away. Up on the ship, Spock tries to contact the Metrons, but no dice. He's 0 for 2. The trap has put a limp on our captain, and he has to take a breather from running for his life. He sits down next to some curry powder, what turns out to actually be sulfur. He makes another log entry and mentions that he remembers something to do with sulfur that might help him out, but he just can't quite put his finger on it. Dinglesaurus Rex is coming, though, so he's got to beat it. Up on the ship, the Metrons finally decide to pick up the phone. They tell the crew that Kirk is getting his ass handed to him and that they need to start getting their affairs in order, write their wills, clear their browsing history, that kind of thing. But hey, you want to watch your boy get lizarded? The screen turns on and the Star Trek episode Arena comes on. Kirk takes another breather next to some different powder. A lot of powder on this planet. Spock says, Potassium nitrate! I'd bet my life on it! Kirk ain't as good and has to lick it to find out what it is. But it looks like he's remembered more of his Coyote combat class now and has started to put two and two together. As he's running off, presumably to put a new plan into action, King Koopa over here calls him up on his recorder thing. Says he's been listening to the Captain Kirk podcast this whole time. He says if Kirk quits running around all over the place, he'll make sure his death is quick and merciful. Kirk says he don't buy that because of what they did to Cestus 3. Coop says they were invaders in Gorn space and setting up an outpost there was an act of war. What they did was self-defense. So there. Spock and McCoy are watching this and they ponder if that's true. If it is, McCoy says, then we could be in the wrong here. Spock agrees. As they continue watching the episode, they see Kirk pass an outcropping of bamboo. Kirk rummages around in there until he comes out with a huge piece. This thing looks like a friggin' trash can from Pier 1. He grabs that and some vine and runs back to where that potassium nitrate was and scoops up some of that. Then grabs some of those diamonds. Spock helps the audience out by narrating what's going on. Kirk seems to teleport to where the sulfur is and then stumbles onto some coal. Well, that was lucky. He sits down and unloads his IKEA gunpowder and starts to assemble his Gilligan's Island brand bamboo cannon. Coop finds Kirk and starts to mosey toward him as he's putting the finishing touches on his boomstick, and just in time he sets it off, spraying King Koopa with ballistic diamonds. The fourth C is caliber, apparently. As Coop is lying there bleeding out, Kirk grabs his obsidian shank and prepares for the coup de grace. But he stops. He says, maybe they thought they was defending themselves when they attacked Cestus 3. Maybe there's already been too much killing. He yells out to the Metrons that he ain't gonna fillet this goanna, as good eating as it might be, so they're gonna have to get their entertainment somewhere else. As he does so, King Koopa disappears, and Prince Herbert of Swamp Castle shows up. Herb says Kirk showed mercy to Coop, and they wasn't expecting that. Says it shows there's hope for humans, so they ain't gotta blow them up for now. Kirk asks what happened to Coop, and Herbert says they sent him back to the Gorn ship. If you want, though, I can blow them up. Kirk says, thanks for the offer. Really, that's very sweet of you, but no thanks. Herb says, cool. You guys show promise. Let's have lunch in about 1,000 years and talk. What do you say? Don't call us, we'll call you. Take it easy, all right? Later. And he fades out. Back on the Enterprise, Kirk appears on the bridge. Uhura asks if he's okay, and he says he don't know, but let's roll. Sulu says the ship has somehow been transported 500 parsecs from where they just was. Kirk says don't worry about it, set a course back to Cestus 3. Spock tells Kirk that after he bedazzled King Koopa back there, they lost their Paramount Plus feed. Kirk, clearly trying to remember if he farted or picked his nose or something, seems kind of alarmed that they were able to watch all of that, but Spock asks what happened afterwards. Kirk says humans apparently have promise. Spock says he has his doubts. Kirk says he don't, and in 1,000 years, maybe they can prove it. Spock says that's weird, and we roll credits. Great stuff. A couple of good lines in this one.
Perhaps, Captain, but nevertheless,
Spock, isn't it enough the Commodore is famous for his hospitality? I, for one, could use a good non-reconstituted meal.
Doctor, you are a sensualist.
You bet your pointed ears I am. Ready whenever you are, Captain.
You know I love the dynamic between these two, so this episode's only really good example of that is of course going to make the list. It's also worth noting that Spock clearly smells a rat from the get-go.
Wait for me. I shall be merciful and quick.
Like you were at Cestus 3?
You were intruding. You established an outpost in our space.
You butchered helpless human beings.
We destroyed invaders, as I shall destroy you.
I love the swagger King Coop gets from being obviously the stronger of the two captains, but I also wanted to point out the third and final appearance of our favorite giant, Ted Cassidy, who voiced the Gorn captain. That guy had a hell of a voice. And while we're on the subject of voices...
You surprise me, Captain.
How?
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you. You demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy. Something we hardly expected. You are still half savage. But there is hope. We will contact you when we are ready.
Sometimes a character just says what is basically the thesis statement, not just for the episode, but for the whole of Star Trek. Humans are still half savage, but there is hope. Also on the voice thing, this is the first appearance of Vic Perrin, doing the voice of the Metron. He'll show up 2 more times in the series. They pulled a Talosian with the Metron here, accentuating an alien androgyny by casting a female in the physical role, in this case one Carol Shelleen, or Carolyn Berry later on, and a male in the voice role, that being old Vic. Carolyn would later appear in the Next Generation episode Home Soil as an engineer. It's always a little surprising when someone appears in both the original series and the Next Generation, but they were only 21 years apart, 1966 to 1987. If the Next Generation was coming out today, the original series would have premiered in 2003. Which also means we're twice as far from the premiere of the Next Generation now than the Next Generation was from the original series. Honestly, I don't know why I do this to myself. Yeesh. Moving on, let's take a second to talk about this guy right here. This is Sean Kinney. You may remember him as the guy who played Crispy Pike in the Menagerie. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I see him in the chair like this, I just don't see it. I mean, he looks more like Jeffrey Hunter than if you put, like, Don Rickles in the chair or something, but I don't know. I don't think I would have put 2 and 2 together that was Pike if they hadn't told me that from the start, you know? Maybe it's just me. But when I see him like this, look at this. That's Sean Kinney right there. I'm looking at Jeffrey Hunter sitting in that chair right there. If they wanted to have non-Cripsy Pike show up in the show, here's your guy. That's crazy. Look at that. So abruptly changing topics, the Gorn suit is legitimately really good. Especially for the time. It really looks great. Truly iconic. This is another creation by Hua Chang, who also did the Salt Vampire, the Baylock Puppet, the Murder Monkeys, all kinds of creatures, and even equipment and ships like the Communicator and the Romulan Bird of Prey. And this thing has great detail. The musculature, the crazy eyes. It looks fantastic. Although, the Goof. This fight right here is pretty terrible. There are so many better ways to demonstrate the Gorn's lack of speed despite superior strength than just telling him to do a King Kong impression, you know? Getting Kirk to move particularly quickly while giving the Gorn sort of regular moves to do that would be hampered already naturally by that suit might have been a better option. I'm no Yin Wo Ping over here, but it seems that fight could have been choreographed way better than that. Now, this next one happens kind of a lot on Star Trek.
Kirk to Enterprise. Red alert.
What is it, Captain?
Cestus 3 has been destroyed.
The Enterprise thinks they beamed everyone down to an intact and operating Earth outpost where there's a Commodore who has great food and discussion to be had about tactics and whatnot. And mere seconds after they beam down, they get a call from the captain, and all he says is, Cestus 3 has been destroyed. And he hangs up. That's it. And the Enterprise doesn't immediately call him back and is all, whoa, what now? Can you elaborate on that, please? It's for dramatic effect, I guess, but it just comes off as unintentionally hilarious to me. And this doesn't stop with the original series.
What is it, number 1? What are you seeing?
Trouble.
That's your report? Trouble? Moving on. Another funny one is something that used to be pretty much a staple in the old serials, and that's the cliffhanger fake-out. I just made up that term, by the way. Look at where we leave things before the commercial break, when Kirk is caught in King Koopa's trap, compared to when we come back from hearing about the refreshing and nutritious taste of Camel cigarettes or whatever. Are you kidding me? Kirk was toast in that first one, and when we come back, Coop is like 10 feet further back, and Kirk isn't nearly as tangled as before. Come on, that's just cheating. Now here's one where I don't know if it's goof or what it is, but it's definitely weird. During our epilogue, McCoy does this awkward pat on the back to Kirk and then just leaves without a word.
Just plot a course for us back to Cestus 3.
Aye, aye, sir.
Not a line in the whole scene. What the heck is that about? Was DeForest Kelly hung over that day or something? How weird is that? Ruminations. Quick trivia note to point out that, sticking to production order, this is the first time both the Federation and photon torpedoes are mentioned in the series. It's really cool seeing things that would last as story elements for going on almost 60 years now getting established for the first time. Also, part of the conversation with the Metron was cut from the episode that would have revealed that the Metrons were planning not to destroy the loser of the fight ship, but the winners, reasoning that the winner would be the greater threat. This is why the Metron tells Kirk at the end they're not going to destroy him, even though that should have been expected since he won the fight. It's also kind of funny that the Metrons are all, "You guys are too violent, so fight to the death." Kind of like when they would suspend you for skipping school, you know? You know, fights to the death for the amusement of others seems to come up a lot in the original series. Now, Mythbusters actually did an episode where they tested the plausibility of Kirk making effective gunpowder in the field by hand and also the bamboo cannon actually working at all. End result is, it's very implausible that Kirk would have been able to hand grind black powder that would work well enough to propel the diamonds out of the cannon, and as for the cannon working at all, well, take a look.
Run! Run! I think we killed Captain Kirk, not the Gorn. Yeah, the Gorn is still standing.
Totally blew out the back of the cannon.
Basically, bamboo don't got the structural integrity in those inner chamber membranes to hold up to the explosive power needed to perforate our lizard buddy over there, even if Kirk was able to mix up a potent enough powder to bring the ruckus. Now, maybe the bamboo on planet Vasquez Rocks is more stout than the Earth version, hard to say. And other people have tried to replicate this thing with varying levels of success, so who knows? I just love the fact that people are trying this out so much to see if they can get it to work. That's pretty cool. Safety disclaimer here, don't try to do this at home, kids. Or if you do, make sure you're wearing a red shirt. No, seriously, leave gunpowder and bamboo alone. I need you to keep watching my videos, and you can't click on the subscribe button if you ain't got no fingers, you know? So leave that kind of stuff to the professionals, and if you have to ask, no, that ain't you. It's interesting that we set up the Gorn with a sort of Gorn-specific tactic. Traps, right? The signal they sent to the Enterprise to lure them in was pretty genius. They somehow emulated Commodore Travers's voice, figured out, presumably from records kept at the outpost or something, who they need to send the signal to and what to say to get the Enterprise to show up. Kind of funny how food played a part in baiting that trap, right? Humans thinking they're all advanced and they're basically Chewie on Endor over here. Promise a good meal and they'll walk right into an ambush. And later on the planet, the Gorn captain sets up a trap for Kirk and then chases him into it. And both traps are shown to work like a charm. Now maybe it ain't the Gorn as a whole, maybe it's just the captain that has a fondness for traps, we're not really sure, but it's a cool trait and they don't really call it out specifically, but it's still there. Great detail. So there are a couple of pretty clearly defined messages here. One of them is the enlightened nature of the quality of mercy. That one's pretty obvious. But I think the one that, while related to that, is a tad more specific is how misunderstandings can lead to conflict and that one side or the other has to be willing to let a slight go unavenged in the hopes that a greater understanding can prevail and further death and destruction be avoided. Now both sides failed at this in this episode. The Gorn assumed the Federation outpost was an aggressive invasion into their territory and immediately attacked. But the Federation, personified by Kirk in this case, also immediately retaliated by declaring the efforts of the Gorn as, ironically, a prelude to invasion, and went on a righteous, anger-fueled vendetta bent on killing the Gorn, and wouldn't tolerate any alternatives from Spock on the subject. I think it's important in this episode that Kirk has to come to the realization of the truth of the message in this case. We see a lot of times when Kirk is the one trying to teach the message to the people of the planet or whatever, and we don't see Kirk in the wrong like this very often. Now, Spock is the one who groks the message from the beginning and is trying to persuade the captain that there are alternative explanations for what has happened, and maybe they should consider not murdering everybody on the Gorn vessel, at least as a plan A. Now, Kirk don't arrive at the correct destination through persuasion, but by getting there himself on the planet, thanks to the Gorn basically explaining their side of things. But I have to think that there was at least some temptation on Spock's part to sling a little "I told you so" when Kirk got back to the ship. But there have been many conflicts in history that could have been avoided with the subtle application of the phrase, "Hey, what gives?" Not every conflict can be avoided with that, but I think it's a good tactic to use first before going full-blown right hand of bloody vengeance, you know? It ain't exactly a complex flowchart, but the order of operations is pretty important, you know? Good message. So there you have it. Arena. What's your opinion of this episode? It's pretty iconic, like I said before, but is it one of Star Trek's better episodes? Myself, I put it about the middle of the road. It ain't spacey, but it ain't "And the Children Shall Lead" neither. How about you? Let me know in the comments down there. Also, give the video a like if you would, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Really helps us do more of these things. If you're in the position to help the channel out monetarily, we got lots of ways you can do that. First, we got all kinds of Possum fashion and accessories over at adstudiosmerch.com. T-shirts, coffee mugs, phone case, you name it, we got it. Second, let me suggest becoming a channel member by hitting that join button down there. You get first access to audio commentary tracks to The Expanse and Babylon 5, as well as anything else I come up with. I'm even trying to set up a time when I can get all the channel members on a group call, and you don't want to miss that. All levels of channel membership get you access. And lastly, if you're more of a one-time kind of person, hit that thanks button and throw a couple of quatloos in the tip jar. Maybe I can get a slice at Lombardi's or something. But even if you just liked the video, you have my eternal gratitude. I love doing this stuff, and I love that you guys are digging it. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Next time, find out what happens when a crazy multiverse hobo shows up screaming about the universe is gonna end, and it looks like he might be right. Join us next time for The Alternative Factor. Until then, possum friends are awesome friends. Take it easy, alright? Later.